over 34,000 residents, more than 13,000 single and multi-family housing units, almost 4,000 businesses, and approximately 100,000 employed. Elk Grove has been a thriving village for almost a half a century. Since its first day of incorporation in 1956, people have been drawn to the exceptional community. Elk Grove has repeatedly been cited as one of the top places to live in the United States. So let's take a journey back in time and see how the village of Elk Grove originated. Long before the village was incorporated, native North American Indians first settled the area. The dense grove of trees inhabited by elk was suitable for hunting, hence the name Elk Grove was born. As time moved on, pioneers from New England populated the land. Eventually, a flooding of German immigrants displaced them. The arrival of the Bussey family in 1848 marked a new generation of farmers who found Elk Grove soil ideal for farming.
It was a lot of farms. All of Landmeyer was farms. Everything around here, there was nothing else built up. I mean, out where Woodfield is, and Sean, that was all just farmland. There was hardly anything out here but farm.
There were farmhouses all over and empty land all over. You don't see it now, but then we could see all the way south to Itasca almost with no obstructions.
And it was all just farmland, wide open. In our backyard, which would be our backyard, was a barn. And so that was kind of neat. And yeah, it was just basically all farmland.
For the next 100 years or so, Elk Grove remained a quiet, prosperous farming community. That all changed in the 1950s. A Dallas development group by the name of Central Texas Company, or commonly known as Centex, had a vision to create an entirely planned community that would consist of both residential and industrial areas. Centex owner Ira Rupley and Centex president Thomas Lively mapped out every detail: playgrounds, shopping areas, schools, churches, community centers, business park, and a hospital would all be included. In order for the dream community to become a reality, a minimum of 1,500 acres was needed. And so the hunt began. Centex searched for land near the Chicago area and struck gold when it discovered Elk Grove Township. It was the ideal place for Centex's master plan. Many factors contributed to this. First, 3 forms of transportation supported the area. A network of major highways surrounded the township. Also nearby were 2 railroads. And lastly, a newly opened airport, Chicago's Orchard Field, or what is now known as O'Hare Airport, was in close proximity. Second, the adjacent forest preserve, presently Bussey Woods, would provide a natural beauty and recreational activities for the community. And third, residents would only be about 29 minutes from Chicago's Loop.
The proximity to the airport, the ease to get onto major expressways is still very important to our businesses. But since that time, there are many other incentives that companies look for. One of the things that I hear more often than not is that companies move here because they like to move into a community of their customers, their suppliers, their vendors. They know about Elk Grove because they've found out about them through their suppliers and their customers, and they like to be right in the midst of that. Another thing, we have a reputation for being a very business-friendly community. And I think one of the evidences of that is our current industrial commercial revitalization program that is underway now.
After negotiating with farmers, Centex quickly scooped up the land. As a result, Elk Grove would become the nation's first master-planned community. Incorporation would then be the next step. A petition was circulated and signed by local residents. On July 17, 1956, Elk Grove Village was incorporated with a population of 116. It was bounded by Higgins Road on the north, State Road on the west, now called Arlington Heights Road, Devon Avenue on the south, and York Road on the east.
And we just thought it was nice out here, and we thought, oh, we'll be like out in the country, but it didn't last long.
To generate interest in the newly incorporated community, a 10-foot wall was built in front of the Centex property, concealing the model homes. The wall bore the slogan, Elk Grove Village, Chicagoland's smartest new suburb. The buzz had begun.
Actually, according to my parents, they said that they were actually looking, we came from Chicago, we lived in Chicago, and my dad wanted to find a place that was just a nice community away from the crowds and everything. So they just went driving, and they were driving around, went on Higgins Road and end up here.
For myself, I heard about the Centex Corporation through advertisements on elevated platforms in Chicago, also in the inside of elevated cars. They had advertisements for Centex bragging about the new community they were developing out northwest of Chicago. That's how I heard about it.
Our interest in Elk Grove was a real surprise to us because we were out looking for a home and started driving out west. Our destination was going to be Wheaton, but cut through this way and saw these homes, decided to stop and look.
In the spring of 1957, an estimated 15,000 people turned out for the opening day of the Centex development.
There were so many people that came out here when the first time that they had to use Andy Frayne ushers to guide the crowds. There were so many coming out after they placed ads in the papers also for this. A lot of people responded. It was a good time. Centex got on a winning horse.
4 different floor plans ranging in price from $15,000 to $22,000 were available. 312 sales were reported on that first day. Emma and Edward Youngquist were noted as the first Elk Grove Village buyers.
We viewed the models, and we liked the big one, the Suburban Air. And the lots were a nice size, and I think Centex did a nice job building the homes.
The homes were excellent because they offered a lot for the money. You get a half to 2/3 brick house with up to 2 full baths, which is a very rare thing in housing today, and 3 bedrooms, which most people came from the city area. We came from, at that time, from Franklin Park, which before that was River Grove, and then Norwood Park in Chicago, but they offered this 3 bedrooms, which many people came from houses with 2 bedrooms. And they didn't have a garage or an attached garage. That didn't exist. But Centex offered an enclosed attached garage.
When we saw the models, they answered many of the questions we wanted. I wanted to have a good traffic pattern. I wanted the 3 bedrooms, and my husband was anxious for the garage.
Well, because it was a first home for us, and the price, of course, was the thing that was most attractive to us. And that's why we bought immediately, because we had seen homes other places, and what we were going to get as far as the amount of space was concerned, I think 1995 was very attractive. And the homes, the rooms were large, and coming from a small apartment and where children could each have their own bedroom, that was very attractive.
When potential homeowners came to view the Centex properties, they were enticed by many things. For the first time in the Chicagoland area, utility lines were buried underground. This would eliminate the messy look of overhead wires.
And of course, we had underground wiring nobody'd ever had. This was brand new. And I think we lost the electricity every time there was a storm. I'm like, I don't understand. I thought the big deal was the wiring was underground, so this wouldn't happen. But of course, it wasn't underground getting to us. They put it underground in Elk Grove, but it was overhead everywhere else. And when they'd have a storm and a pole would go down or something, there we were without electricity.
Residential areas boasted curvilinear streets. The idea was to create winding roads that would provide convenient access to homes, but to discourage use of non-local traffic. Also, in addition to the many planned parks and shopping areas, a new elementary school would be waiting for the later residents upon moving in.
The first thing that impressed me is that everything that the salesman told us came about. They said there would be street lights, and sure enough, the street lights appeared. They said there would be paved streets, and sure enough, the streets were paved. There were curbs and sidewalks, and other features. There was a police force and a fire department, and what else? There was other things. There were schools, lots of schools. They were being built. There were churches. The space was allotted for the church land. That's why so churches have so much land around them. It was all allotted ahead of time.
One of the biggest attractions to move into the village was the predicted low taxes for the residents. Elk Grove Village was the first planned community in the country that incorporated an industrial park into its master plan. Therefore, businesses would be the main contributors to the village tax base. Because there are so many positive things about purchasing a home in Elk Grove, selling them wasn't much of an obstacle. In fact, earliest buyers chose their home from a blueprint before even viewing the models. From there, word of mouth became the biggest form of advertisement.
We had been looking for houses. We'd gone out to a number of places and hadn't seen anything that we could afford that looked like much of anything. And I was off with the girls visiting my family in Kansas City, and friends of ours found the house. I got back and called up. He was also an airline pilot. He worked for another airline, but we were friends, and they had 2 little boys. We found a house, and we bought it. I'm like, oh, you're kidding. So we drove out the next morning after I got back home and looked at them, and my husband said, okay, which one of the 2 big ones do you like the best? And so I said, I like that one, and that's what we bought.
We had been looking for a home. We lived in Chicago at the time, and all of a sudden saw the sign, open house, so stopped in to see the models, and actually went that day and put our down payment on the house.
Our interest in Elk Grove was a real surprise to us because we were out looking for a home and started driving out west. Our destination was going to be Wheaton, but cut through this way and saw these homes and decided to stop and look. And bought that day, which was incredible. We just didn't realize we were going to buy or even dream of buying. But the homes weren't open. The sales office was open, and there were people in it, and there were people putting their fingers on different lots. So we decided, there was one model that really met our interests, and decided we'd pick our lot, and went home to my folks and let them know what we did. And we couldn't really answer all the questions because we didn't know what all it included. But the price was right. And we couldn't have been more happy about it because it was our first home and it was suited our purposes.
My wife and I bought a house in Elk Grove in 1957. It was not even built yet. There was just a marker out listing where the lot was. And it took until May of '58 for them to complete it so we could move in.
But they took us out. There was nothing paved, no streets made south of Landmeyer. But after we signed for the house, the guy brought us out, and we stood on Landmeyer, which didn't have any traffic. I mean, it was just a two-lane road, and he pointed off that direction, and it was a big, deep, kind of swampy-looking area. And he said, "That's where your house will be." I thought, okay.
The first group of homes were built in the northwest corner of the village, bounded by Higgins, State, Oakton, and Wildwood. Early in 1957, families began to move in. Francis and Barbara Walsh were the first to move into the newly developed community. As a result, they were presented with a gold key to the village. In 1958, expansion continued. This group of homes was bounded by Oakton to the north and Landmeyer to the south. The third section of homes followed, with Tower Lane going south to present-day Elk Grove Boulevard and Ridge Avenue as the border to the east, and so on and so forth. And Elk Grove was finally beginning to look like a community.
When we first moved here, of course, we had the landscaping to put in. We had, of course, the streets were not all in. I think the one great big difference for us at the north end is the corner of Arlington Heights and Higgins. It used to be State Road. It was just a one-lane road. Today, it's hard to believe it, there are 9 lanes in that corner. We used to be able to walk out on Higgins Road and pull the sled up to the corner where we had to go to get our mail, for instance, at Rudy's Tavern. Quite a change, quite a change.
Everybody had little kids. We were all out on the sidewalks. There was no shade. There were just little sticks of trees that were put in, one in the parkway, one in the front yard. And there was no shade in the summertime. There was nowhere to find shade. And the kids were all little. Everybody had little kids, so we were all out with our kids.
Nobody had any fences, and so the backyards were just, one big playground for the kids, and they didn't have to walk on the sidewalk. They could just run across the yard to their friend's house. So it was fun.
And we ended up driving. There was the very first library was one of the model homes that was converted into a library. So me and my girlfriend, who lived across the street from me, we became real good friends. We drove there. It was behind the shopping center where the bowling alley is now, and we went for library books. Went there for library books all the time. And I remember when the IGA, there used to be an IGA, which in that shopping center, and that we used to ride our bikes through there. I know we weren't supposed to, but we did.
We met a lot of wonderful people. Everybody was in the same boat as we were. Didn't have much money. Most of us only had one car, so we had to juggle shopping, or we'd go with friends and stuff because, husband had the other car and so forth.
50 years later, and Elk Grove Village is still a much desirable community to live in. Homes that originally sold for between $15,000 and $22,000 now sell for between $240,000 and $250,000. Typically, a home stays on the selling market for only 14 days. Many residents from the original Centex community have either moved to a bigger home within Elk Grove or have added an addition onto their home to fulfill the needs of their growing families. More often than not, families stay living in the village.
We did have a room addition put on in 1967, an extra bedroom and a family room with the fireplace.
My family moved here in 1957, and we lived here for 32 years. and we never had. They stayed here until they retired, and then they sold the house. And I moved away and then came back, and I live in an apartment complex, and I've lived there for 10 years, and I really like living in Elk Grove, and it's all familiar, so that's basically why I came back. And
my husband and I moved, and our 2 children moved into Elk Grove in 1957 in May. We stayed there. We had to wait for our house to be built for almost a year. We had purchased it before, shortly after Syntex first opened. And we stayed there for 10 years, and then we moved to a larger house in Elk Grove and have been residents of Elk Grove ever since.
I don't think that we could find a nicer place to live in our retirement. As long as we're able, God willing, I think we will stay.
And here we are 50 years later, still attracting people in the community, and more importantly, keeping people in the community. I was born and raised here in Elk Grove Village. When I graduated in 1978 from Elk Grove High School, we had the largest class ever. Almost 630 students graduated. Yet today, over 200 of us still live in Elk Grove. Why is that? Because it offers so much to us. Award-winning schools, a park district second to none, and village services that are delivered to everyone at the needs as quickly and inexpensively as possible. It's a unique place that you can still work and live within the same boundaries of one community. Elk Grove was unique back in 1956. It's unique today. It attracted people in 1956. It's keeping people today, and it's going to be attracting people well into the future.
And just as it did a half a century ago, the village continuously strives to fulfill the needs of its residents by following modern-day plans for the community.
We still are very pleased with the community, with the government, the way things have developed and stuff. It's surprising the advancement that has gone on in these number of years. I remember when we first moved in, we had one policeman and he had a dog. And that was our police force. We didn't have a fire department. Of course, we didn't have a hospital. We didn't have a shopping center. So, each year it seemed to something better came.
When we came out here, of course, it was nothing but fields, and we've seen it grow to what it is today.
At first, we didn't know, and as we got into it, I liked Elk Grove. I like the people here. I like the progressive attitudes. I like the development of the community. Everything was provided. It was here. Elk Grove was a good place to live.
My biggest thing is the difference is the how large it's become. Everywhere you look, they're always building something new and, and something more, adding on.
In 1956, when Elk Grove was incorporated, it was in a planned community by the Syntex Corporation. Syntex had always envisioned a community here in Elk Grove as a mixture of both residential and business. And the leaders in the past have followed that plan, I think, to a T. And that's why Elk Grove is such a successful community. But because you see it pretty much built out, doesn't mean we've stopped planning for the future. We just completed our very successful residential enhancement. We're still in the midst of our industrial commercial revitalization because we realize the planning never stops, the work never ends. And we want to make sure that Elk Grove plans to be a great community for another 50 years.
From dirt roads and farmlands to brick crosswalks and neighborhood parks, it's exciting to see how far Elk Grove Village has come. And even more exciting is the potential of the exceptional community as it journeys forward into the next 50 years.